she walked out of a blizzard with nowhere left to go. He gave her work when the town only gave judgment. One winter night forced them to choose between fear and truth, and the choice they made changed a lonely ranch forever. Hey everyone, before we jump into this tale of a lonely ranch and a tough winter, let me ask, where are you listening from right now? Drop a comment and tell me your city or town and what's the time there. If you're enjoying these kinds of stories, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. All right, let's begin. A woman's figure came into view through the thick gray falling snow. She walked on foot with no horse or wagon tracks behind her. Only a thin, old coat wrapped around her body, and her boots were so worn at the heels they seemed ready to fall apart. The wind blew hard across the Montana plains, cold enough to hurt the skin. Winter was not coming anymore. It was already here. Ethan Brooks stood in the doorway of his ranch house, one hand holding the frame, watching her walk up the last part of the hill. Most people turned back when the sky looked like this. She did not. She did not stop to rest, she did not trip, she just kept moving ahead, one steady step after another. When she reached the porch, she knocked 3 times, strong and even, as if she had decided this was the last door she would try. Ethan opened it. She was younger than he thought, late 20s, maybe a bit older. Her dark hair was pulled back tight. Her face looked thin from hunger or worry, or both. Snow stuck to her eyelashes. Her eyes met his without fear, but they were tired in a way he understood well. The look of someone who had run out of options, but not courage. "I'm looking for work," she said. No hello, no sorry for the time or the storm. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "What kind of work?" "Any kind you will give me. I can cook, clean, fix things. I learn quick." He looked at her hands. Not soft, but not ranch tough either. Hands that had worked, just not this kind of work. "Why here?" he asked. "Because you're far enough from town that maybe you need help more than you need rumors." That almost made him smile. Almost. His housekeeper had left 3 weeks before, saying the quiet drove her crazy. Winter was coming fast, and Ethan needed someone to keep the house going while he took care of the animals. Still, a strange woman showing up alone at dusk could bring problems. But the snow was falling harder now, thick flakes turning the world white and risky. "You'll find more than pay here," Ethan said at last. "Work starts before sunrise. Days are long. This land does not forgive mistakes. I do not allow quitting, and I do not give free help." "I do not take free help," she said. "Just fair work for fair pay." He nodded slowly. "Can you handle animals and chickens?" "I can learn what I do not know," she said, "and I do not break easy." That answer settled something in him. "The bunkhouse is out back," he said. "Stove works, blankets are clean. We will talk terms in the morning." She nodded once. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet," he said. "You might regret this by sunrise." He showed her the small building behind the main house. 1 room, 1 window, 1 stove. She stepped inside without complaint and put her small bag on the cot. "Name's Ethan Brooks," he said. "Emma Carter." He paused. "Mrs. Tom Carter?" "Just Emma," she said. "I'm widowed." Ethan nodded. Widowed and alone explained more than words ever could. "See you at dawn," he said. Inside the main house, Ethan lit the lamp and stared at the empty kitchen table set for 1. He wondered what she was running from. He wondered if he had just made a mistake, and he wondered why her eyes reminded him so much of his own. Outside, the snow fell harder, covering her tracks like the land itself was keeping a secret. "Hey folks, pausing here for a quick check-in. Where are you tuning in from today? City, state, country? And what's the time over there? Morning, afternoon, night? If this story is pulling you in, drop a like and subscribe so we can keep sharing more. Back to it now." 3 days later, Ethan opened the barn door at 4 in the morning and stopped. Emma stood in the yard in the dark, breath showing in the cold, struggling with leather straps near one of the horses. She had not been told when to start. He had only said dawn. Most people would have slept until first light. She had not. "That's a bridle." Ethan said after watching her struggle. "Horse does not need it for cleaning stalls." She turned, surprised but not ashamed. "Then I will use the halter." He pointed to the feed bin. 2 scoops per animal. Water troughs need breaking if they freeze." She nodded and got to work. By noon, the stalls were clean, water hauled, and a section of fence fixed with wire and strong effort. Her hands were wrapped in torn cloth, blood showing through. "That's enough for today," Ethan called. "There's more fence." I said, "That's enough." She did not argue, just nodded and walked back to the bunkhouse. That night, Ethan left a plate of stew and bread on the kitchen table for her and ate alone in the other room. The line was clear: rancher and hired help. That was how it had to be. Near midnight, the chickens screamed. Ethan grabbed his rifle and ran outside. He stopped short. Emma stood by the henhouse in her nightgown and coat, one of his rifles raised. Firelight from the lantern painted her in orange and shadow. 3 wolves circled beyond the fence, eyes shining in the dark. She fired a warning shot into the air. The wolves backed off but stayed near. Ethan moved beside her, lit a torch, and threw it toward them. She fired again. Together they pushed the pack back into the hills. When the quiet returned, they stood side by side, breath rising in white clouds. "You know how to shoot," Ethan said. "My father taught me. A woman alone needs to know how to stand her ground." She was shaking from cold or excitement. Maybe both, but she had not run. "Get some rest. They will not be back tonight." She nodded and walked to the bunkhouse, rifle still in her hands. Ethan watched her go, listening to the distant howl of wolves, lonely and old. Maybe, he thought, he had not made a mistake after all. 2 days later, he rode into town for supplies. The looks started right away. "Morning, Ethan," Martha Doyle said carefully from behind the counter. "Heard you hired a woman." "Needed help," Ethan said. "She needed work." "Folks are talking." "Folks always talk." Outside, Warren Kent blocked the doorway, banker thin, smile sharp. "She that kind of woman?" Kent asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's the kind that works hard and minds her own business." Kent stepped aside, still smiling. "Just friendly advice." Ethan rode home under a sky the color of iron, a new winter coat tied behind his saddle. Back at the ranch, he handed it to Emma without ceremony. "You will need this," he said. "Snow is coming hard." She stared at it like it might disappear. "I cannot pay you back." "Did not ask you to." "Then why?" "Maybe I know what it is like," he said, "to need a place that does not ask questions." She nodded, holding the coat to her chest. That night, Ethan lay awake listening to the wind. In the bunkhouse, Emma sat on her cot wrapped in warmth for the first time in a long while. Outside, the land settled under snow, and somewhere beyond the hill, the wolves waited. The ranch settled into a quiet rhythm as winter grew stronger. Days began before light and ended after dark. Snow piled against fences and pressed down on the land until everything felt smaller and closer. Emma learned quickly, too quickly for someone who said she had never worked a ranch before. She learned the sound of frozen hinges, the way cattle moved when snow meant hunger, the quiet that warned of another storm. Ethan watched without comment. He showed her how to throw a rope, how to read a nervous animal, how to move steady instead of fast. She missed more than she caught, but she never quit, not once. Weeks passed. November turned into December. The cold stayed. One evening, while they worked by lantern light in the barn, Emma began to hum. The tune was simple, worn smooth by years. Ethan paused, the rope loose in his hands. "What is that?" he asked. "A hymn my mother used to sing," Emma said. "It helped when things felt heavier than you were." She finished her work and went quiet again, but the sound stayed with him long after the lantern was out. The pipes froze on a Tuesday morning. Ethan found out when no water came from the pump. He said one quiet curse. The fix would take days. Until then, water would have to be carried by hand from the creek. "You can use the spare bedroom," he said that evening. "It is warmer. The pump inside still works." Emma hesitated. People already talk. People always talk. Question is whether you freeze caring about it. I am not that kind of woman, she said softly. I know, and I am not that kind of man. After a long moment, she nodded. That night, they ate supper at the same table for the first time. The fire cracked low. The house felt different, less empty. They did not say much. They did not need to. Loss has a way of making strangers understand each other faster than words ever could. Christmas came quietly. No tree, just pine branches over the fireplace and candles in the windows. Ethan carved a small wooden bird from scrap pine and set it where the firelight could catch it. I made one once, he said, for a child that never lived long enough to hold it. Emma did not ask questions. She did not need to. My daughter was 4, she said later that night. Fever took her. After that, the town decided my grief was a crime. Ethan stared into the fire. My wife died in childbirth. Folks said I should have done more. Maybe they were right. They sat with that truth between them. 2 people carrying guilt neither had earned, but both believed. The blizzard came 3 days after Christmas. It came hard and fast, erasing the world beyond the porch. The cattle were stuck in the far pasture. If they did not bring feed, the herd would not survive. I am going, Ethan said, loading hay onto the sled. You are not going alone, Emma said, already pulling on her coat. He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her to stay inside, but he saw the same determination that had brought her to his door in the snow. They followed the fence line by feel, the wind hitting like fists. Snow filled their mouths and lungs. 2 hours out, 1 hour feeding cattle by touch more than sight. On the way back, the ground gave way beneath Emma. One moment she was beside him, the next she vanished into black water. Ethan grabbed her coat and pulled with all he had. She came up gasping, already shaking hard. Move, he shouted. Do not stop. They reached the line shack just as her lips turned blue. Inside, Ethan took off her wet clothes, wrapped her in blankets, lit the stove. When it was not enough, he added himself to the blankets. Body heat was the last option, but it was the only one left. Stay awake, he said. Talk to me. I am cold, she whispered. I know, but you were stronger than cold. She pressed against him, shaking hard. Slowly, the shaking eased. I cannot lose someone again, Ethan said. The words came out before he could stop them. Emma's hand found his. You will not, she said. Nothing improper happened, but everything changed. They returned to the ranch alive, tired, and already judged. By the time Warren Kent rode up days later, the story had grown sharp. You were alone with her, Kent said. During the storm, no witnesses. What is your point? Ethan asked. Send her away, Kent said smoothly, or you will lose credit, trade, and respect. That night, Ethan told Emma she should go to town. The look on her face was worse than anger. It was hurt turned into something dangerous. You said this place was different, she said. You said we handle our own. I was trying to protect you. No, she said. You are protecting yourself. She packed without another word. Jasper, Ethan's ranch hand, watched from the doorway. You are scared, Jasper said, and you are wrong. Those words stayed long after Emma left. Ethan sat alone, listening to wolves howl in the distance, realizing the real threats wore clean coats and friendly smiles. And he knew with a cold certainty that if he did nothing now, he would lose her forever. Outside, the church bell rang for Sunday, and Ethan Brooks made his choice. Hey listeners, what a moment! Tell me quick, where are you right now as the story builds? Your location and the time there. If this part has you hooked, like and subscribe for more stories like this one. Let's see how it ends. Ethan Brooks walked into the church like a man facing his own judgment. The wooden doors creaked open and every head turned. The room smelled of wet wool and old pine. Snow stuck to boots lined along the walls. Reverend Minnelm stood at the pulpit mid-sermon, his voice slowing as Ethan's footsteps echoed down the center aisle. Warren Kent sat in the front row, his back straight, his mouth already curved in quiet victory. Ethan stopped near the front and turned to face the room. "I have something to say," he said. Reverend Mills cleared his throat. "Mr. Brooks, perhaps after the service." "No," Ethan said. His voice was calm, but it carried. "Now." A hush fell. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. "You all knew my wife Sarah," Ethan began. "She was a good woman, strong, kind. When she died, many of you decided I failed her. Some of you still believe that." Murmurs moved through the pews. "Maybe you were right," Ethan continued, "or maybe grief just makes people hungry for someone to blame. Either way, I learned something. Judgment is easier than mercy." His eyes found Warren Kent. "There has been talk about a woman named Emma Carter. You call her shameful. You call her dangerous. You whisper about her like she is not human." Kent stood. "Mr. Brooks, propriety matters. A man's reputation matters." "Does it?" Ethan said, cutting him off. "Or does your comfort matter more than truth?" The room stirred. "She lost her child," Ethan said. "She lost her husband. She lost her home. And instead of giving up, she kept going. She worked harder than anyone I have ever hired. She stood her ground when wolves came in the night. And not one of you had the decency to know her name before you judged her." Kent's face hardened. "This is not about charity." "You are right," Ethan said. "It is about courage, something this town has forgotten." He took a breath. "Yes, she lived on my land. Yes, I care for her. If that offends you, judge me, but leave her out of your poison. Any man who has a problem with that knows where to find me." Ethan turned and walked out before anyone could stop him. The cold hit his face hard, but for the first time in years, his chest felt lighter. He rode straight to town. Emma's room at the hotel was small and plain, a narrow bed, one chair. Her bag sat packed at the foot. She looked up when he entered, guarded and tired. "I should have stood up sooner," Ethan said. "I was afraid, and I was wrong." She did not speak. "I choose you," he said, "every day, not as hired help, not as something to hide, as my partner, if you will have me." She studied his face for a long moment, searching for doubt. Finally, she nodded. They rode back to the ranch side by side. The land greeted them the same way it always had, silent, honest. Spring came slow. Then, all at once, snow melted into dark earth. Green pushed through dead grass. The creek ran clear again, no longer a trap, but a promise. Ethan and Emma worked together, not separate, not careful, together. Some folks came around. Martha Doyle brought stew in an awkward blessing. Jasper only smiled and said he had never doubted. Warren Kent stayed quiet. That was enough. One evening, Ethan led Emma to the hill where they had first met. "I buried them here," he said, nodding to two small crosses. "Sarah and the baby." Emma took his hand. "I never got to say goodbye." They stood in the wind, grief moving between them like a shared language. "You think they would forgive us?" Emma asked, "for choosing to live again?" Ethan squeezed her hand. "I think they would call us fools if we did not." They married the next week. No church, no crowd, just vows spoken under open sky, the land bearing witness. That night they stood in the doorway of the main house, the door open, light spilling out. The wooden bird caught the firelight on the mantel. They stepped inside together. Behind them, the door closed, soft as a promise. Ahead of them, a life earned the hard way. And for the first time, the ranch felt like home. And that's the end of the story, friends. How did it feel? Drop a comment. Where are you listening from, and what's the time right now? If this tale touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a good story today. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one.